Welcome to the 7th Vitra session entitled Eames. My name is Nora Fehlbaum. I'm CEO of Vitra and will guide you through the next half hour or so. Charles and Ray Eames have been the most influential figures for Vitra over the past 70 years. My grandfather, the son of a farming family from Bern, Switzerland, saw an Eames chair in New York City on his first trip to the United States in 1953. He later met Charles Eames and became infatuated with this endlessly charming, impeccably dressed man. The two got along splendidly. Both were very good at what they did and held great respect for each other. The language barrier, neither spoke the other's native tongue, was bridged by Rolf Fehlbaum, Willy's eldest son and my uncle. Rolf accompanied them on every visit and grew close to Charles and Ray, adopting their wisdom, working philosophy and design process. Rolf, who succeeded his father at the head of the company, later introduced the question, "What would Charles say?" to situations when Vitra's development team was stuck on a project, allowing them to benefit from an outsider's view, and not just any outsider, but the most impactful designer of the modern age. While I never met Charles or Ray, I do have the privilege of working with their grandson, Eames and his siblings, who were all exposed to the Vitra universe from a very young age. We're welcoming you from the Vitra Center in Birsfelden near Basel, where licensed production of Eames products started 66 years ago, and where Christian and his team work today. He'll be up a little later. First, let's start with the story of Vitra and Eames.
This is the story of a transatlantic partnership between Erika and Willy Fehlbaum in Switzerland and a couple across the ocean in California, who just so happen to be the now famous designer duo Charles and Ray Eames. But more about Charles and Ray later, because our story starts with Erika and Willy. Back in 1934, Willy had joined a small company in Basel called Greta, which made shop window display units. 3 years later, Willy took over the firm. And in 1950, Erika and Willy together founded a new design company named Vitra. Business quickly thrived, and the couple soon built a whole new factory in the German town of Weil am Rhein. Always on the lookout for new ideas, Willy decided to travel to the USA, where he came across a shop window in New York selling furniture unlike anything he'd ever seen before. Furniture by Charles and Ray Eames. Back in the 1950s, the Eameses were taking the design world by storm with their playful and functional designs that would go on to become timeless classics. Willy acquired the rights from American manufacturer Herman Miller to produce the Eames designs for the European market. And in 1957, the Fehlbaums began the licensed production of Eames furniture for Europe. That same year, Willy and Erika traveled to California to meet Charles and Ray and see their revolutionary Eames house. Neither couple spoke the other's language, so Erika and Willy's son Rolf stepped in to translate. Over time, the Fehlbaums and the Eameses even became friends. They shared the same values: attention to detail, a belief in process and systems, and a commitment to lasting quality above all else. In 1977, Erika and Willy withdrew from their active roles in the company and turned management responsibilities over to their sons Rolf and Raymond, who continued working closely with the Eameses. Today, this collaboration is alive and well in the third generation of both families, as they strive to preserve and promote Charles and Ray's legacy. The Vitra Design Museum holds an important part of the three-dimensional estate of Charles and Ray and dedicates time to studying its contents and sharing them with the public, while the Eames designs themselves are now entering their 7th decade of continuous production in Europe. And as Vitra evolves and adapts to changing times, the spirit of Charles and Ray is as present today as ever. But let's now hear a bit more about Charles and Ray, and who better to talk about them than their grandson, Eames Demetrius.
My name's Eames Demetrius, and I'm the director of the Eames office. Charles and Ray Eames were my grandparents, and I work with my siblings to take care of their legacy today. Charles and Ray Eames are ranked among the greatest designers of the 20th century, but they made amazing contributions on the creation of toys, exhibitions, architecture, art, film. And their work is so multifaceted and so relevant to today. Even though they're gone, their work and ideas are not. Charles and Ray took different paths to Cranbrook. which is where they met. Charles was born in St. Louis and studied as an architect, and Ray was born in Sacramento, California. She was always passionate about art and was always painting, always drawing. She was one of the students who was helping Charles and Arrow do the submission panels for the organic furniture competition at MoMA. And the rest, as they say, is history. When Charles and Ray came to California, they got a Neutra design department in Westwood. Charles got a job at MGM, and so that helped support them. They started doing their experiments. They built what they called the Kazam machine, because it almost seemed like magic. It was basically kind of a press that allowed you to heat up the glue and the veneer so that you could compress it. So that shows where their minds were at, always thinking about how to make this work. When America entered World War II, they designed a splint. Then they did a sculpture, which was on the cover of Arts and Architecture in 1942. Then they made the next sculpture. The reason why that sculpture is so important, it was the first time that somebody had molded plywood in multiple thicknesses and made complex curves with it. And that set the stage for this design. It was a pivot in their lives. It was a pivot in the design world. And it really transformed everything. Very soon after that, the idea of it being an Eames office came about. They ended up in 1943 at 901 Washington, which is an old bus garage. Somebody could instantly come in and you'd almost be overwhelmed by the proof of the creativity of these two people. Charles and Ray were not really economically successful until the early 50s when the plastic chair came. The plastic chair changed everything for them. It also changed everything for Vitra. The chair that Charles and Ray were designing is the chair that Vitra makes tomorrow. For example, we're now making the Eames plastic chairs out of post-consumer plastic to be more environmentally responsible. Ray Eames died on August 21st, 1988, exactly 10 years after Charles died. And when this happened, our mother, Lucia Eames, became the heir and became responsible. All the siblings have been involved with the Eames office in different ways. I started as director in 1988. In 2002, my brother became the manager of the Eames office. My sister Carla is the head of education. Lisa was the archivist and is now running the Eames Institute. Lucia is the director of the Eames Foundation, which takes care of the Eames house. All those roles are important. After Ray's death in 1988, it was natural for us to continue the strong partnership that Charles and Ray had established with Vitra. And then we were very pleased that the Vitra Design Museum acquired a meaningful part of Charles and Ray's three-dimensional archive, which they use and maintain to this day.
Rolf, do you have any favorites in this archive?
An archive in principle is showing how the Eameses worked. That's the most interesting part. That's why we have many, many variations and we see the development steps. Also the fact that you need hundreds of ways of trying something until you come to a solution.
You've spent quite some time with Charles and Ray. How would you describe them as people and their working method?
They were problem solvers. Of course, they have a sense of aesthetics, but for them, they were not formalists. They were not interested in giving new forms. New forms happened. So they were ever searching, ever working also. You cannot imagine Eames on holiday.
No.
Unimaginable. So they were always on a project, always busy, always working, wanting to solve a problem properly.
And do you think this idea of solving a problem is also why so many of their products became classics?
Well, to solve a problem well is a good condition, let's put it that, but not enough. I mean, that something becomes a classic, you have to find an expression of the period, not of a moment. Their product expresses the modernism, the idea that everything is visible, every function is visible, but you have to do it in an epochal way, which they did. And you don't want to say, I'm doing a classic. First of all, a classic, when it first comes, is not a classic. First, it's a rebellion against things that have been done before. And then it comes, and then first it meets a lot of skepticism, then it rises, and then other people come, they want to do something similar. Then you have a lounge chair, you had 100 competitors with sort of the same idea. And then over time, these competitors disappear. The king chair, the whatever chair, and one stays, the classic.
Were there any flops?
There were flops, sure. Most of them were discovered early. For instance, let's say for instance, a typical flop. For instance, this sofa is very interesting, let's do it, and then forget it. I mean, lounge chair went through all these different manifestations, you know, how awful that did in this way, this way, this way, this way. For instance, the minimal chair, how can you do an absolutely reduced chair? But then nobody wants to sit on that chair.
It looks a little unstable. We're standing here in front of the Eames shell chair. Some critics might say that the Eames products, they are no longer interesting.
Of course, if you are a journalist or if you are an interior designer, you are in chase of the new, because what do you write about? The same thing all the time. No, you have something new. It's less interesting, of course, to talk about things that stay. But for the user, for the one who has it, it's very interesting to have things like stay. Because
that are just good.
A good chance that they are good 10 years or 20 years from now. A good classic or a real classic is news that stays news in a very strange way, because it's still a surprise. I mean, I've seen these things now for over 60 years.
Right.
And I still sometimes look at, wow, amazing. A piece of art is finished at the moment where the artist says, that is it. A piece of design is actually never finished. And because you continue to work, because it's both, it has an art side, but it has a functional side. And the functional side you try to perfect. So the Eameses worked on the same chair all the time. They looked at the glide, they say, this glide is not working very well. You know, that's a problem, because this rubber
and
started
things over
to
time.
So let's find a better glide or a better this. And in that sense, it's normal that one adapts, but one may not adapt or over-adapt the product to a time. Maybe at a certain moment the product is no longer fit for the time. But to do these dimensional changes, or if you have new legislation.
Exactly, new materials that become available.
It's a balance act, because you touch something great. So better be careful. And who is the judge? And in our case, we have, I think, some good judgment ourselves, but we also have the Eames family, no?
Exactly. Exactly, that's what we work with Eames and his siblings on.
Yeah.
And Eames is actually next up in our session. Eames Demetrius will speak about how they collaborate with Vitra to continuously adapt the Eames products to new market requirements.
While Charles and Ray were alive, they were the advocates for their designs. This ultimately included creating a system of continuous dialogue for the next generations. This system ensures that each product leaving the factory gives users the full experience of function, aesthetics, and quality that Charles and Ray intended. Charles and Ray knew that in the modern world, change was a constant. Charles even said that in order to be really secure, you had to be secure in change. Ray said, what works good is better than what looks good, because what looks good can change, but what works good will always work. Rather than freezing these notions in time, Charles and Ray charged their family and their partner Vitra with the freedom and responsibility to make changes of a technical, aesthetic, and even playful nature. They wanted us to ensure the ongoing utility of their designs and make them ready for all the challenges of the future.
So we just heard Eames talk a lot about how even at his grandparents' time, change was a constant. And throughout their life, Charles and Ray were adapting products to new needs of customers and markets and so on. Now that's the work, of course, that you and your team, together with the Eames family, do today. And it's almost as intense and time-consuming as the new product development is.
We have more than 60 years of experience now working with the Eames products, and I think we have really established a very solid knowledge base at Vitra that we can refer to when working with updates or relaunches of the Eames products.
Eames also always talks about how the original is the product that Vitra makes tomorrow. There are also more nostalgic or critical voices that say that these products actually shouldn't be touched at all. We could just say that we leave them exactly as Charles and Ray intended them to be. What would you say to that?
Society have changed a lot. The world looks very different than it did back in the 1950s. People are growing taller.
Right.
And in recent years, we've seen a lot of changes in the way that we live and the way that we work. And I think it's important that the designs also reflect that change in society. Mm-hmm. So as a furniture manufacturer, we are constantly looking for new solutions, new materials to keep our products long-lasting and, of course, contemporary.
Shall we look at some examples?
Let's do that. So here we have the lounge chair, one of the most iconic pieces by the Eameses. Yeah. And as you can see, we have two different sizes. Because over the past decades, I mean, the average human height has increased by nearly 10 centimeters, which is a lot, especially when we talk about furniture. As you can see here, the seat is slightly deeper, the back is a little bit higher, the armrests have been adjusted a little bit. It's really a delicate balance when you start to work with the proportions of such a well-known product. So what you want to achieve at the end is that you feel it. So when you sit in it as a tall person, it's comfortable. Right. But when you look at it, you don't see it. That's the new version in fabric that we're launching now. So this is a very soft boucle fabric because leather is not for everyone.
So just like the lounge chair that has been in production with Vitra here on the campus in Weil am Rhein since 1956, the Alu Group has been in production as well in Germany since it was first developed in the 1960s. What do you think made this product particularly stand the test of time?
These products are really great examples of survival of the fittest. So they can be used as the perfect home office chair, or in an auditorium, or in a meeting room, or even as a lounge chair. And Eames also talked about the fact that this is not only the design of a chair, it's actually a design of an entire manufacturing process. So there's a kind of sort of inherent logic built into this design.
And what's new about these chairs now?
So now we're introducing new fabrics on the aluminium group. So this is the Cozy 2, and over there we have the track fabric, and these are of course in addition to the existing hopsack fabric that we have on the collection today. On the soft pad family, we are also newly introducing that in fabric, and there we are also introducing the track and the Cozy 2, and in addition the Laser Re, which is made out of 100% recycled polyester.
On to the Eames plastic chair, which is probably one of the most important designs of the 20th century, and likely also one of the most copied. Now, the original, as we know, is by Vitra. And following the Eameses mantra of continuous improvement, we have changed these products a lot over their long production history.
True.
The latest change following our environmental mission is to switch from virgin plastic to a recycled material, which sounds easy, but as we know, it isn't.
It's really a project that we've been working hard on because you can imagine that there are huge expectations to such a widely and heavily used chair as the Eames shell chairs. And if we switch the material to a recycled material, the expectations are the same. When the chair was launched in the early 50s, it was launched in fiberglass, similar look to this one, which back then was really state-of-the-art and really revolutionary. Right. And then in the beginning of the 1990s, the production ceased, and then it was picked up again in 1999, where it was relaunched in polypropylene. And then in 2019, the fiberglass version was actually reintroduced in an updated version of the fiberglass technology. And now, in 24, we will introduce the chair in recycled material. So that means that 1st of January 24, it will be available in recycled household waste from Germany. And of course, the recycled shell is 100% recyclable. So at the end of the product's life, it can be recycled.
So this material looks very different from a normal plastic granulate.
So this is how it looks like before it's turned into the granulate. So this is just household waste that is cleaned and shredded from German households. So it's really about upcycling the material.
Does this change the look of the chair?
There will be a slight change because in the surface you will see small specks of pigment. It's not a huge change, and that's of course something that our customers need to get used to because that's the nature of recycled material.
Okay, in terms of comfort, I would say nothing has changed.
Nothing has changed.
So now let's have a look at the Eames shell chair in use at Irene's house in London.
I live here with my family. There's 5 of us. I think unconsciously about framing moments, freezing things in time. I'll look at things to see where's the balance of color or a detail, and I'll snapshot that and archive it for myself. There's a slight weirdness, a slight kind of bitter and sweet, which I try to achieve. The magic layered on top of everything else, it's the memories I've collected. What excited me when I got to go to the Eames house in California, you can tell they had a lot of fun, from their sketches to the colors, the way they lived in their own collection of life. Curation for me is at the center of everything. And also the kids have their own eye. The pop of something unusual is what I'm after.
My name is Lucia Atwood. I'm the director of the Eames Foundation, as well as one of Charles and Ray Eames' 5 grandchildren. The Eames house is located on a bluff above the Pacific Ocean in Los Angeles, California. Charles and Ray Eames designed the house and built it in 1949. They lived and worked here for the rest of their lives. The Eames house is known as Case Study House Number 8, part of Arts and Architecture magazine's seminal Case Study House program. The program was initiated by John Intenza, the magazine's owner and editor, as a challenge to the architectural community to use the new materials and processes developed during the war years to address a looming national housing shortage. At the time revolutionary, the Eameses chose to explore mass production, ordering prefabricated materials and fixtures from catalogs that were seamlessly collaged together. Charles and Ray wanted a home that would make no demands for itself and that would enable a life and work. 2 structures, a residence and a studio integrally connected by patios, were nestled behind a row of mature eucalypti. The trees shade the structures against the California heat and offer magical shadows. Flowering plants line the walkways, chosen to welcome guests. Charles and Ray would often picnic with family and colleagues in the meadow. Let's go into the house. Both structures have a 2-story great room, which provides flexibility. Their living room evolved constantly. It could be a home movie theater, a setting for product shots, a gathering space for students, as well as dinner parties, even a tea ceremony with Isamu Noguchi and Charlie Chaplin. As Charles said, the role of the designer is that of a good, thoughtful host, anticipating the needs of the guest. They once said, "Every time I lay a table, I am designing something." Watching Ray set a table was like watching a beautiful dance, a seemingly effortless flow made possible only by her daily practice. This idea of the guest-host relationship underlay every project. The objects you see here tell the story of the pair's lives, their travels, their projects, as well as their family and friends. Objects are carefully arranged in groups, the relationships creating new understandings or encouraging another look. This shelving unit showcases books in a serendipitous arrangement, along with a parade of animals from around the world. Double-sided, it is set at a slight distance from the living room tallow wood wall, providing a discreet spot. The latter draws your eyes up to experience the whole volume of space, and in a very Eamesian way, has another purpose, to change light bulbs or to hang art. The Eameses lived with their furniture, testing it in their everyday lives, and when needed, making iterative improvements to make it work better. The studio where my older brother, sister, and I stayed for a summer was a favorite retreat, transformed with a swing and pile of boxes into our home. Now it is the Eames Foundation's headquarters. The house has been unchanged since Ray's death in 1988. In 2004, my mother, Lucia Eames, established the Eames Foundation to protect the house and its grounds. And in 2007, the Eames House was designated a National Historic Landmark. At the Eames Foundation, with the support of founding partners like Vitra in the Eames office, we have created the 250-year project. It is our way of ensuring that when your great-great-great-great-grandchildren visit the Eames house in the future, they will be able to have the same authentic experience that you can have today. We look forward to welcoming you soon.
This is the end of today's session, and I'm saying goodbye to you from the Eames Shell Chair production on the Vitra campus. Thank you for joining us on this journey into our shared Vitra and Eames history. Many of their designs have been adapted over the decades, with more updates coming this year, all in the spirit of the Eameses who never stopped working on a product. That's the responsibility that we carry and share with the Eames family. Today, many of these adaptations take the shape of new recycled materials and other measures that bring us closer to our ambitious environmental goals. For those of you who would like to learn more about Vitra and Eames, a new book has recently been published. The updated Eames collection will be on display during local events scheduled in Vitra showrooms over the coming weeks. We really hope to see you there. Take care.